So there is a new series of videos that's coming out on YouTube. I don't know if you guys are following any of it or not, but the YouTuber that I'm about to talk about is known as the Black Conservative Patriot, or BCP. Now, his videos talking about how Trump is trying to stop the human trafficking at the border. That's really one of the biggest things that is problematic in our country right now, is the human trade going on at the border. It has nothing to do with the illegal immigration of people getting trapped here or those who could come through at a waypoint. That's sort of the idea behind the wall. There's not going to be a solid border that is just a solid fence. There will be points of entry where the Border Patrol will allow people through. Now, that's through a series of proper vetting things. There'll be counselors there at the border that will be able to tell whether the children that are with these older people are actually their kids, or if they're just people they've kidnapped and they're trying to traffic them across the border. Now, this is a very prominent thing that is done from Mexico to America and America to Mexico. These things do happen, and it's awful that it does, but it does happen. So since they started doing these things, the human trafficking is basically prostitution, people being sold into sex slavery, or they do that with children and with adults, or some people who are healthy, I suppose. They take their organs, and it goes through the black market organ trade. That's what occurs across the border. And why they're trying to stop it, what Trump is trying to do, is to make this harder for them to do. And when there's a wall there, it gets a lot more difficult to get people across the border that don't belong here, especially those that are being victimized as part of the organ trade and or are going into the sex slavery trade. Now, that's not a way for a person to live. I don't care if they're from a different country. They can come here through a point of entry and be properly vetted by the Border Patrol officers, so we can hopefully avoid some of this madness that has occurred with people going across our borders, especially being sold into sex slavery and or as property to someone else. Now, just because slavery doesn't exist in our country anymore, at least not where it's an obvious chains to your wrist slavery, we're still slaves, people. We go to work every day. We earn a paycheck. That money is required to live here. You can't live without that money. That makes you a what? A slave. Now, it depends on how you look at it, but it still is slavery. Yeah. So beyond that, what I wanted to talk about a little bit more was about this guy's channel. The Black Conservative Patriot is very cool. I like the channel's overall goal and message is to try and put out some more positive messages from the current president, that we're not experiencing this government shutdown because he is doing anything. This is because our Congress is losing its freaking mind. Now, they are there to protect us, to enact laws to protect us, not to sell away our souls and our rights and our liberties and our freedoms, right? So what do they do in regard to that? They shut down the government, which causes them to not get a paycheck. But at the same time, non-essential government is being shut down. So that would mean that those that are non-essential aren't working. So my goodness. I don't think that's good, but there's not much to do about it for you and me. There's not much to do about that for the president either. All he has to do is secure funding for the border wall, and then it is done. The Democratic Congress is refusing to make a choice on this and is thus shutting down government. Once Trump does anything to secure our border and as a matter of national security, if he does it as an executive order, whether the government is shut down or not, it's going to happen. So this border wall is not going to keep innocent people out or in what it will do is stop the human trafficking that's going on across our border. Now, if you don't think that it's happening, there are lots of movies that talk about it. There are lots of news channels that talk about it. There are tons of places you can get sources for this information. It's not just here, and it's not just from the BCP channel, and it's not just going on in our country. This occurs everywhere. Because the sales and trafficking of children is a very, very popular market. Now, I do not participate in anything of the sort, okay? Though they may accuse people who are bringing this shit up to be part of it, but I'm not. I have simply read and provided myself the opportunity to read the information from old newspaper clippings, from the libraries, from books that I've read, from things like that when I went to the library, and now from certain people on YouTube that do offer patriotic slants on things that may be presenting another picture of the truth. Now, I do also watch and cite all the sources this guy has also put up on his videos, and most of it does come across as cut and dry if you can understand logic. Now, if you are brainwashed by the social normative behavior now, if you're brainwashed by them, then you probably won't get any of this message. You're going to take one look at me, you're going to look at this guy, and you're not going to be like, I believe you both completely. You're going to be ducking your tail between your legs and running away. Like, no, this is not real. Well, I'm afraid it is. There are a lot of kids being sold into slavery here in our country. Not any kind of slavery where you're making shoes or sewing together shirts or sweatshops, none of that crap. Sex trade. Okay, that's what's happening. And it's a scary and disgusting thing that's occurring across our border, and it is a real and very big problem in our country. That is what the border wall is about. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people saying, well, yeah, you bring this up now. Well, no, he's been saying it the whole time. If you pay attention to any one of Trump's actual speeches, he mentions this nearly every time he talks to certain people in certain groups. So it just depends on what video you're watching, what topic they're covering in the conference, and what is happening in the general time. But he said that numerous occasions. The border needs to be done to clean up some bad stuff that's going on. He uses tough hombres and rough people as euphemisms to kind of make it a little lighter. So it's not so much for the people to digest because they don't really know what's going on or what's occurring. But now that things are kind of in open air, and then, you get all this report about the scandalous Trump pointing out the scandals that Hillary was involved with, the Clinton Foundation being involved in pedophilia, and an island dedicated to said acts called Lolita Island. And the plane that Clinton and Bush and Obama used was, the Lolita Express, taking congressmen, famous movie stars, all the way to this island to have sex with kids. And the whole thing, is just a big mess and cover up for all this human sex trafficking. That's just part of it, okay? The government involvement is just part of it. If we can't nail them down because they're too big to fail by Obama's standards, we can't lock them up for what they've done, but we can take care of their market and where they get their drugs from. So what you do is you shut the border down between here and Mexico, and you allow points of entry for legitimate people who just want to come in and become part of our country, or people who just legitimately want to go. No problem. In and out you go from the borders of points of entry. And there are those already existing on rather heavily guarded points of the border. There are points of entry where you're allowed through. It doesn't seem that way through the videos, but when you watch the videos of the real border, there's nothing there. There's no people. There might be a few Border Patrol agents in a truck about a couple miles down the road, but it's not like there is anyone there. It's pretty much an empty space. So whatever viewpoint the mainstream media monster has put in your head about there being a huge crowd at the border trying to get through because of Trump's dang wall, some girl is separated from her mom and daddy. Well, yeah, they do that on purpose so they can vet that the children actually belong to the adults. That's not anything they're trying to do to harm you, or they're trying to separate your family. They're not trying to do that. But if you can't prove the child is yours, then that's going to look like something else. And that's the reason that they do these kind of things. Now, so when you come to the border, when you come to the United States border, bring your documentation to show you were born in Mexico. Bring your birth certificate, their birth certificate. Bring your identification with you. Bring those documents with you. If you don't have them, go to your local government to get some. If you don't have them there, then shoot, I don't know. Apply to have a DNA test done. Okay, you have a DNA test done, and you have a scientist to study the DNA to sign off on that child matches your DNA, and you guys are related. Then you can take that piece of paper with you to the border and prove the child is yours easily. Documentation, because without that, it's going to fall to us to make those kinds of judgments. And then the scientists at the border, there are none. They're just Border Patrol agents. They have to verbally audit you, and then if they have deeper investigation, then it's going to take a little bit longer for you to get through. So this would only save you time. Doing this the right way would only save you time. And of course, the aggravation of having to go back across the border to get this kind of stuff legitimized and fixed at a later time, when you can do this now. If you're wanting to enter our country, do it the proper way, the same way that you would enter any other country. Now, just like when you're going to, say, I don't know, Germany or Russia or England, okay? If you're not from their country and they can't identify you in any shape, way, fashion, or form, and you're on a boat approaching a very sensitive part of their country and you don't know it, you'll get shot. Or Border Patrol will come out there to your boat and say, hey, who the hell are you? And what are you doing here? Why are you on this boat right outside of our country, just approaching our most sensitive Air Force installation? What are you doing? And you don't know it because some of the places are actually put up in quite a hidden manner. So you wouldn't know the location unless you knew something. So, yeah, not safe to go to any other country and approach their border unidentified, even on a boat. Okay? There is the Port Authority that you have to, report to, I suppose, in different situations like that. You can do it legitimately. If your goal is truly just to travel there, then you can get off your little boat, walk up the dock planks or whatever, and speak to the harbor master and get yourself some identification. No, they used to do that kind of thing, but now it's a little different. Our government has gotten too big for its britches in some ways, and I think that we need to start cracking the belt against these folks to get them to stop doing things that are foolish and stupid. Like, okay, running our government is not enough for you to do, so you need to have all this other crap that goes along with being a government official, like a really, really expensive car, a large house, a lot of money, and not only that, also a right, or at least a seemed right, or legal method and way in which to tell me how to spend my money, that it needs to go to you every paycheck for your paycheck, my taxes. And then what I do apparently earns me money, but you must get a cut. Now, taxation, under my presumption from learning about the Constitution and constitutional law, is that I presume that taxation is illegal. Even with representation of this manner, it's still illegal because they're not telling you directly where the taxes are going. They give you an abbreviation. They give you a justification on your birth certificate. I mean, not your birth certificate, but your check stub. So you get representation of that taxation on your check stub. But the problem is those places that are taking your money, they're going to taking more of your rights away. It's going to regulate you more, to cause a bigger cage and to do things differently than they used to be done in such a manner that it's just insane. So I'll leave it there, but you guys can watch the Black Conservative Patriot on YouTube. Let's see. Let me get a link here. There we go. Copy the URL. So what I'll do is I'll paste the URL in this video at the end of it. So yeah, where you can catch him out. And he will be, let's see. If you don't know him already, it's the BCP, Black Conservative Patriot. But this particular video here, while everyone focuses on the wall, Trump just crippled the global banking cartel. Is the Fed next? Well, yeah, I think so. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to share that one in this video. So aside from that, what I really wanted to get down to from those other crazy parts of our country, the true issue of our freedom and constitutional rights being violated every single day is not something that you should be happy that occurs. It's something you need to be aware of. Because not only does it implicate everyone you know, it also impacts everyone you know. Even the smallest and most innocent action can cause some terrible harm, especially when you don't know what you're capable of. And in the short of all of that, the entire property of our government is based solely on these banking cartels. Now, the government itself also has a huge deficit that we're racking up. There's a huge debt that we are basically responsible for. And since this debt is accruing and getting larger and larger every single day, the government shutdown doesn't help things, but it doesn't ruin things either. This is still a situation where we can come back from it. What we can do to try and pay off the national debt is by stop devaluing our money. We stop it by doing that, by ending the devaluation of our money, ending the complete basis of our fund growth on fiat currency or oil or a petrodollar, whatever. We come away from that and we go into an actual gold-backed currency. That will seriously help things in our country and will also help clear out some of the national debt just by having currency that operates on a standard, not like what we are currently using, which is a fiat currency. If you're not aware of what those things are, I do suggest doing your Google homework, looking those words up especially. But our currency is definitely not what it used to be. And the federal government has nothing to do with that because the reserve is not part of it. The Federal Reserve does not mean federal government. It is a separate entity, a private corporation, a bank, and they have a license to print money. Why? Because we gave it to them. And what we need to do is take it back. And you do that by introducing a currency or a newer currency that is based on a standard. Gold, silver, heavy precious metals, something like that would be a much better way to govern a currency's value by, because, well, one thing, you and I may not agree on what a bit is worth, but something that is backed up by a standard will do that. And that takes away the third party requirement to define what a currency is worth, because the metal itself at that precious rating, the money is based off a holding of that gold standard as a promissory note to that gold. So the note itself holds its value based on that standard. And then you and I won't argue over the standard value of a dollar because it's based on a gold standard, not a fiat currency or a petro. Now, gold doesn't devalue and change in value much, so the currency would be more stable. And depending on the purity of the gold can depend on the worth, especially if you're basing your notes off of fool's gold or, black gold, I should say, or moving forward to a precious metal standard, which is what would work for us in the past and what would work for us now. If we would just go to it again, we need to bring back the precious metal or worth-based currency, which I find that hard to believe that I'm actually saying that. A currency backed by something valuable is much better than a currency that's based off something fictional, because you don't actually own any oil, and your currency is a fiat currency based off the petrodollar. Or well, it is the petrodollar, but whatever. It is based off that worth, and you don't actually hold any of the value in that paper. Even if you were to use, like, say, I can't really think of anything at the moment to give that example, but whatever. We'll go straight away to something different, because bartering and trading is where all this stuff began. People began to not have things to trade with, so rather than have nothing to trade with, they would break up pieces of metal, and they would call them bits. And they would take these pieces of metal and use them as currency, as in trade with another object or service or whatever. That's how the bartering system came into place and how trade became use of currency. And then now our system, the economic system we have in our country, is based off that as well. Now, the reason that you can get worth and things like that from standard small objects is because other people are going to find them worthy. Now, say I had, like, I don't know, 12 or 13 pounds of gold. What do you think that would be worth? And that's sort of the situation you're putting yourself in when you're talking to somebody who doesn't know what a 12 pound weight of gold is actually worth, if it's pure gold and not some filler. They used to do that a lot too, and call it the fool's gold, is where that another beginning of the word fool's gold and use of it, fool's gold anyway, in that phrase, used that time too, because of that, for using a different metal and then gold over the top of it, creating fool's gold because it weighs more than actual gold because of the heavier metal. Duh. But yeah, that's generally what caused it back in the early days. I would say probably the 13 to 1400s in Europe and about the 15 to 1600s here in the United States during the gold rush. And then the more modern gold rush that occurred in California in the West was, well, our local gold rush, I guess. That would be in the 1900s. I can't remember what year, but what year started anyway. It's 1930s. But anyhow, that's pretty much what's going on. So if you're not familiar with the Black Conservative Patriot, I do recommend looking him up. And some of his videos are actually quite useful, especially when he talks about the insane level of the government corruption and how far it goes up, and how many people are actually involved and implicated in the deaths of other people, and how it can occur right outside your door. And it does just about every day. So yeah, anyhow, hope you guys enjoy. Thanks again for watching. Have a good one.